tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Okay, so it's both the Saturday night gathering and our lunar observance day. So it happens to coincide. And we're just coming out of our winter retreat time and beginning to settle into our kind of routine of beginning to have our work, gatherings, duties, chores. But I think one of the things as we come into a period of say out of retreat, a bit more engagement, then it gets helpful to reflect on the aspects of the Dhamma that are really our foundation. What do we take as our foundation? What do we return to as our kind of anchor? And I was thinking about this and reflecting on how many people have made the observation that Ajahn Chah's teachings, say many of Ajahn Chah's teachings tend to revolve around and be rooted in the themes of Sila and Samadhi, sort of virtue and right view. And it's really, because I think Ajahn Chah certainly saw the value and necessity of having a solid basis. And I think for us in the West, and even for many people in Thailand, there's a tendency to look to kind of either meditation technique or philosophical analysis of the teachings, but in particular the meditation methodologies. And of course, it wasn't that Ajahn Chah was a great meditation teacher, but it was interesting that he kept returning to these themes over and over and over again. And whether, sometimes it was overt, and sometimes it was, he was just giving good advice, and it happened to fall under those umbrellas. But I also found it interesting that there's a few sutras, in particular in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Samyutta 47, on the foundations of mindfulness. where monks go to the Buddha and ask for a teaching so that they can go into seclusion, practice for practice for liberation. So the idiom tends to be used so you can dwell secluded, alone, ardent. Can't remember all the epithets that are used, but that sense of okay, I want to go off and practice and kind of go for it. And the Buddha's advice was to pay attention to the foundations of what is most. I can't remember exactly how the idiom was used, but sort of like developing the foundations of what is most basic to skillful qualities, skillful mental qualities, and then and what is the basis of skillful mental qualities? A well-purified virtue and views made straight. It's quite beautiful. And then the Buddha said, and then when one has developed that say well-purified virtue and views made straight, then relying on that virtue, dependent on that virtue, and then developing the four foundations of mindfulness and developing the actual meditation practice, so that, and usually ends with the you will go beyond the realm of death. You'll be get past Mara. So that again, the Buddha himself emphasizing that this is the foundation, this sense of our virtue or Sila, and that's something that is easy for, I think, particularly for us in a Western culture, that we tend to there's a certain element of kind of resistance to the much of it's in the language and assumptions that we assume, because Buddhism's approach to, say, like Sila, or oftentimes Sila is translated as morality, and it already becomes into that assumption of kind of a struggle of good against evil, and it gets all entangled with fear and guilt and shame, and it gets very messy. And then views made straight of, say, having fundamental to our worldview is a very strong perception of self, of me, of kind of the I, me, mine program, which is so both of these things are the antithesis of, say, the Buddha's approach to virtue and aligning one's views with the way things truly are, so that the sense of virtue being a And Sila, keeping, say the precepts are kept not out of fear or out of some kind of command from somewhere. Just as it was, say, this evening, take the taking of the precepts as we're not, say the monks don't go around making people take precepts. So people have to ask for it, and then we can do that. Same with even teaching Dhamma. Kevin's request for Dhamma teaching, so that it's this sense of the taking on of a training in conduct that is beneficial, is skillful. There's a discourse in the Anguttara Nikaya, Anguttara 10s, where Ananda asks the Buddha, what is the, what's the benefit? What's the fruit of sila, say a virtue of moral integrity? And the Buddha is, then he goes into a series of they say the benefit is freedom from remorse, just having established oneself in really good, clear, skillful conduct. There's no sense of remorse or regret. And then the Buddha continues, said, well, what's the benefit? What's the fruit of non-remorse? Is delight, joy. It feels good. Happiness. Then he goes through the results of that, leading up, and then leading on to samadhi and seeing things in their true nature and relinquishment, letting go. So it's predicated on these, that foundation of skillful qualities, skillful conduct. There's a very, I think, beautiful verse in the Dhammapada, Dhammapada 118. Having performed a wholesome deed, it is good to repeat it again and again, and be interested in the pleasure of wholesomeness. The fruit of accumulated goodness is contentment. This is a very beautiful recognition of the there is action and there is result, and it affects the mind. It's like the contented mind settles much more easily. And sense of the mind, the heart that's really at ease is able to settle, and it just is such a strong foundation, strong basis. So that sense of cultivation of virtue, well purified virtue. And so, and that say in the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha's path, that there's the way that the Buddha approaches everything, there's always a balance, and nothing is kind of one-sided or not reflected on clearly. So that certainly one of the obstacles fetters that tie one to suffering and to samsara, tie one to delusion is what the Buddha says, Sila Pata Paramasa. It's just like a clinging attachment to precepts and practice. One thinking that it's going to, just by doing that, it's going to purify one, or just desperately hanging on to a particular way of doing something, and whether it's with precepts or with practices of training, that it's going to do. That's what's going to purify one. That's not quite balanced. There is let's say, the function of virtue, of the precepts, is to be the catalyst for one's well-being and to be. It's like that from that Dhammapada verse, be interested in the pleasure of wholesomeness. Like, that's really important. That it's very necessary as a human being that we experience well-being and happiness, and it's not. The Buddha's not against us feeling good, but he just wants it to be within the boundaries of that which is going to actually bear fruit, and lay the foundations for one's continued progress towards freedom and liberation. So that cultivation of virtue. So just even in the verse that say like Ajahn Yaniko recited after the taking of the precept, Silena sugatiyanti, Silena bhoga sampada, Silena nibbutiyanti, tasma silam visodaye. And the Sila leads to happiness. Sila is one's treasure. Sila leads to the ending of suffering. Cultivate one's virtue. Cultivate one's Sila. It is an important foundation, and that also. It's like one of the images that Ajahn Chah used to use in encouraging people to be keeping the precepts and developing the kind of training in skillful conduct. That it's like having one's kind of plugging the holes in one's water jar, so that the water doesn't keep leaking out all the time and disappearing. So it's it says it performs a very practical function, or an image that Luang Por used to use is that it's like just having, like in a car, it's like having brakes. It's really handy to have brakes if you've got a car. Even if you've got a really fancy new Tesla or a Mercedes, it's no brakes. It's really this is really problematic. So this is performing a practical function. So that well purified virtue, and the views made straight is just. I remember Lumpur Cha one time receiving a group of Western meditation teachers and some of their senior students, and them asking, like in Buddhism it talks about right view, and so we even teach about right view, but what is right view anyway? And then Ajahn Chah's response was, and he's saying, he's saying, no, he picked up a glass cup of tea. Just knowing that this glass is already broken. It was just really that simple. But what it does is point anicca, impermanence, uncertainty, change, inconstancy. Just that recognition that everything is bound up with change, with uncertainty, with that. One has to take that into account, and it isn't a dismissive kind of everything's impermanent, so you don't have to bother. Everything's impermanent, so get over it. It's a sense of this is a reality, and while it is here, look after it, and when it does break, then don't get upset. And then that applies to, when you start extending that and realizing, well, that applies to not just the physical material realm, it applies to the whole realm of our moods, our mental states, our thoughts. And so that it's fairly easy to recognize the impermanence and uncertainty of a glass that is easily broken, but to recognize and really bring it into the heart and recognition of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm assuming is it's even more impermanent. What I consider to be me it keeps, and when you look at it clearly, it's just constantly shifting and changing, and that to have right view, having the views made straight, is really internalizing the recognition of that kind of changefulness, uncertainty, inconstancy of everything, absolutely everything. And that doesn't sort of paralyze one of everything is inconstant, changing, and react out of fear and confusion. It's more like, this is the way things truly are now. How to understand that and to respond with wisdom and compassion. And that's what's most important. And so then one is cultivating the recognition, and of course then once start fleshing that out, well, and as the Buddha points to over and over and over again, that sense of, well, that which is impermanent, subject to change, um, is that satisfying or is that unsatisfying? Is it sukha or dukkha? Is that happiness or is that suffering? Say, well, no, it's fraught with dissatisfaction. It's the constant, which is impermanent and changing, that we're being separated from all the time. That's not so satisfactory. That is dukkha. And then you extend that logic and reflect on it more deeply, and recognizing everything on the physical realm, material realm, the mental realm, the emotional realm, it's changing, it's uncertain, we're being separated from all the time, it's unsatisfactory, it's not, it is dukkha. Is that worthy of saying, this is mine, this is what I am, this is myself? So on a logical basis, of course, well, no, not at all. But the practice of Dhamma is not necessarily just, or the realization isn't just a rational thought process. We have to live it and experience it in a way that it really is brought into the heart. That open aiko, leading inwards, drawing it into the heart. And so that sense of contemplating, reflecting, understanding, and how we view the world around us and the sense of self is this impermanent and unsatisfactory, not self nature. But again, that's not just a dismissal. It is a willingness to take on the true nature of this experience and respond to it with clarity, and with compassion, with a sense of a purity of heart, and that allows a sense of liberation, freedom. It is the appropriate response, and of course. But again, for that appropriate response to arise, there needs to be a solid foundation, a solid base where you can't just will this into existence or think it into reality. It has to be experienced and the heart has to leap forward to it, so that think of some of the and there's again the sense of easefulness that is so important to cultivate, and seeing things clearly. Or like Lumpur Cha talking about that seeing things in their true nature, seeing aligning oneself with the right view. It's like similar to the say one person sees a duck and sees a chicken, and they want the chicken to be like a duck, or they want the duck to be like a chicken. And of course, it gets very confusing and complicated, because duck's going to be a duck and a chicken's going to be a chicken. I mean, that's the way things truly are. But where we see things that are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self, and we want it to be stable. We want it to give us be inherently gratifying and satisfying. I mean, this is what we want it to be for me, and it's never going to be able to do that. So that's as bad as or as frustrating and hopeless as somebody wanting a duck to be a chicken, or a chicken to be a duck. And it's that kind of simple. And you see it looking at it in a kind of a fresh way, and not investing in the trying to make things follow one's preference, one's ideal, one's desire, program. There's a lot of space to let things be, and then to respond appropriately, skillfully, with virtue, with integrity, with a sense of clarity and discernment, wisdom. So having the paying attention to these foundations, paying attention to the things that really do create a solid base for us to develop our practice from, and develop our growth as human beings that are interested in truth, interested in the Dhamma. It's an opportunity that we all have, and it does take patience, and does take a whole lot of other wholesome qualities, just in addition to having a form with having training precepts, having clear teachings. It relies on cultivation of patience, putting forth effort as well, having determination, commitment. All of these barami are a part of that. Loving kindness, and these are all qualities that work together, function together, and that as we begin our year, and pay attention to laying those foundations skillfully, and being able to experience the fruits of the practice. So I'll offer that for reflection this evening.